A black teenager was humiliated for having a fake ID, unaware that his mother was a judge. This day marked the beginning of a fight that shook everyone. But let's start from the very beginning. Mark Davis entered the shopping mall with a light smile. His paycheck had finally arrived, and he decided to buy a gift for his mother. Holding his wallet, with his ID neatly tucked inside, he walked confidently into the buzzing mall. At the entrance, a stern-looking security officer caught his eye. "Hey, you! Stop!" barked Officer Carter, pointing at Mark. The sharp tone drew the attention of passers-by. Mark stopped, confused but calm. "Good afternoon. Is something wrong?" he asked politely. "ID, now," Carter demanded, his suspicion clear. Mark handed him the ID, but Carter barely glanced at it before sneering. "Fake, huh?" he mocked, waving it. "Didn't even try to make it look real." "It's a valid ID," Mark replied, keeping his voice steady. "You can check." Ignoring him, Carter threw the wallet to the ground, scattering its contents. "Think you're smart?" he snapped. "I've seen this before. You don't even look 16. I'll call the cops. They'll deal with you." Mark crouched to pick up his belongings, his hands shaking. Around him the crowd began to gather, whispering and recording. "Please," Mark said firmly, "just verify it in your system." "Don't tell me what to do," Carter retorted, reaching for his radio. "Suspicious individual. Likely fake documents. Need patrol backup." The murmurs of the crowd grew louder. "Just check his ID," someone shouted. Phones captured everything. Mark stood tall, holding his wallet, determined not to lose his composure. He knew this was just the beginning. The police arrived swiftly. 2 patrol cars stopped at the entrance of the shopping mall, their flashing lights illuminating the dimming evening. The crowd parted slightly but didn't disperse, continuing to watch and record on their phones. Mark stood motionless, clutching his wallet tightly. His eyes met one of the officers, and he was the first to speak. "My ID is real. Please check it," he said calmly, holding out his document. Officer Carter immediately interjected. "Don't listen to him," he snapped at the patrol officers. "I'm certain it's fake. This kid's just trying to sneak in with a phony ID." Sergeant Rodriguez, one of the officers, took the ID and examined it briefly. "Let's not jump to conclusions, Carter. We'll verify it," he said, inputting the details into his tablet. Meanwhile, voices of support arose from the crowd. "Leave the boy alone," shouted a woman. "This is racism," added another bystander. Carter tensed but tried to keep his composure. Turning back to Mark, he leaned in with a threatening tone. "Listen, kid. Do you want to get arrested? Just tell the truth now." Mark remained silent, staring straight ahead, his calm demeanor further irritating Carter. Moments later, Rodriguez's tablet beeped with the results. He frowned, then nodded. "It's legitimate. The ID is real," he announced, handing it back to Mark. Carter, however, wasn't ready to let it go. "You don't understand how often they pull these stunts," he exclaimed defensively. "He's probably got another fake document or something else in his pocket." Rodriguez sighed and took a step back. "Carter, it's done. There's no crime here. Let him go." Before Carter could argue, a tall woman in a sharp business suit emerged from the crowd, striding confidently toward Mark. The crowd fell silent, sensing the gravity of the moment. "What's going on here?" she demanded, her voice clear and commanding. Carter turned to face her, freezing in place as her cold, piercing gaze met his. "I'm Alyssa Davis, a judge for the district court. This boy is my son," she said, holding up her judicial ID. "Now, explain to me, officer, on what grounds are you accusing my son of a crime?" Carter stammered, but no words came out. Rodriguez shot him a sharp look, clearly expecting an explanation. "Judge Davis, my apologies for the misunderstanding. We've verified everything, and it's all clear," Rodriguez said quickly, trying to de-escalate. "A misunderstanding?" Alyssa stepped closer. "I saw this officer throw my son's wallet and accuse him without cause. This isn't just a mistake. It's abuse of power and blatant bias." "Yes, she's right," someone in the crowd shouted. The gathering erupted into applause and cheers of support. Carter tried to mumble something, but Alyssa cut him off. "My lawyer will be in touch with your superiors. I won't let this go unanswered." The patrol officers moved Carter aside, and Mark felt a weight lift from his shoulders. His mother wrapped an arm around him as he whispered, "Thank you, Mom." The crowd cheered louder, with some already uploading videos of the incident to social media. Carter, meanwhile, realized that this day would mark the beginning of his downfall. The next morning, the video of the mall incident exploded across social media. Headlines read, "Officer humiliates black teen, unaware his mother is a judge." The clip amassed millions of views, sparking public outrage. Comments poured in. "How much longer will this continue?" And "This is what systemic racism looks like." That same day, Alyssa Davis filed an official lawsuit against the mall's security service. She also contacted the police department, demanding an explanation for Carter's actions. "This wasn't just a random incident," she declared at a press conference outside the courthouse. "It's a reflection of deeply rooted biases that we must confront and dismantle." Meanwhile, Carter was placed on temporary leave pending an internal investigation. His superior, Captain Randall, publicly stated, "We condemn all forms of bias. Our department is committed to revisiting our anti-discrimination training programs." Carter, however, refused to accept blame. In an interview with a local news station, he attempted to justify his behavior. "I was just doing my job. You can't trust anyone these days. This isn't about race, it's about safety." His remarks only intensified public outrage. Soon after, additional complaints surfaced from other mall visitors about Carter's excessively aggressive conduct. Mark, still reeling from the humiliation, refused to remain silent. Together with his mother, he joined a protest outside the mall. Under a banner reading "Justice for All," he addressed the crowd. "This isn't just about me. It's about everyone who faces bias. We all deserve respect and equal treatment." His words were met with thunderous applause. The video of his speech went viral, and media outlets followed every development of the story. Mounting pressure on the mall and the police department forced them to take action. Later that day, Carter was informed that the investigation had concluded. He now faced not only termination, but also potential criminal charges for abuse of power. For the first time, he realized that the consequences were inevitable. A few days after the scandal broke, the police issued an official statement. Carter was fired for breaching professional ethics. Additionally, the mall publicly apologized to Mark and his family, pledging to implement anti-racism training for its staff. Mark and Alyssa accepted an invitation to appear on a popular talk show, where they shared their story with millions of viewers. "This incident is not just our personal tragedy," Alyssa said. "It's proof that change is possible if we fight for justice." Mark added, "I hope no one else has to go through what I did. Everyone deserves respect." Their interview quickly went viral, sparking yet another wave of discussions. Crowds gathered outside the courthouse to support Mark and Alyssa as they filed a civil rights lawsuit against the police department and the mall. Public pressure continued to mount. In response, the police announced a new initiative to review their practices, including mandatory racial bias training for all officers. The mall hired a new head of security who promised to reform its security policies. The most surprising development, however, came from Carter himself. In a letter published in a local newspaper, he wrote, "I realize I made a grave mistake. This incident forced me to reflect on my actions and the system I worked within. I apologize to Mark and his family." While many were skeptical of his sincerity, for Mark, it was a sign that their fight had made an impact. The story came full circle on the day Mark was honored as a guest speaker at his school during an event celebrating equality. In his speech, he said, "What happened to me is a reminder that each of us can be a voice for change. Our strength lies in truth and unity." From the front row, Alyssa smiled, her eyes brimming with tears, not of sadness but of hope and pride for her son.